We light this candle to remind ourselves to treat all people kindly because they are our kin. We light this candle to remind ourselves to take good care of the earth because it is our home. We light this candle to remind ourselves to live lives full of goodness and love because that is how we will become the best people that we can be. A few anonymous words to light our chalice this morning. And good morning. Welcome to Cross Street Chapel's Sunday service. I'm grateful for your presence here, for those who joined us in person, as well as those who are listening online. And I hope that whatever it is that you're looking for in this space, be it a time for joy and celebration, to laugh with one another, a chance to share some sorrow and perhaps some repose and cry together. Perhaps you've come looking for a few words of wisdom. I hope they'll be heard, as well as if you've come looking to connect with one another or to rest with the divine. Whatever it is that's brought you into this space, I hope you'll find it as well as a warm community. And that latter, I know because I know this congregation, and they are a loving and warm community. So we had some anonymous words to light our chalice. We turn now to the words of Abraham Joshua Heschel, a 20th century Jewish theologian and philosopher. Our goal should be to live life in radical amazement, to get up in the morning and look at the world in a way that takes nothing for granted. To be spiritual is to be amazed. And here in this church, we have no creed. We don't have a set expectation of belief. People come with their own sort of theologies. But we hope that you can encounter life with that same level of amazement. Let us sing together our first hymn, Brian Wren's in the Purple Book, number 30, Each Seeking Faith is Seeking Light, hymn number 30. It all flows through our seeking faith. Our spirituality, our religion is built not upon belief, but by action. let us gather into a time of prayer with these words of the Reverend A. Powell Davies. O God, to whom we come so often with needs to be satisfied, help us to come sometimes in gratitude for what we already have, for the rest and renewal of the nighttime and the freshness of morning, for the ever-changing loveliness of earth and sky, for the love of friends and kindness and compassion when we need them, for the joy of human fellowship and work to do, for all the ventures and endeavors in which we depend upon each other, for the greatness of our heritage and the inspiration of so many who have gone before us, for those who from earliest times fought back ignorance and fear, for the slow garnering of all enlightenment, for the values that we take for granted, and for so much goodness in our common daily life. For all these, O God, make us more ready to be thankful. Amen. And please read with me our covenant, which is printed in your order of worship and will appear online for those following from home. We gather here in sacred fellowship to witness the fullness of our lives and all life, to hold and be held, tell stories and listen, to be renewed and renew the world. We speak with care and patience. We act with gentleness and compassion. We forgive each other and ourselves. In faith that we build beloved community, we renew our covenant today. Amen. Those words written by the congregation a number of years ago. I will come a bit closer so that people can see the beautiful pictures in today's story, Under the Same Sky by Britta Teckentrup. I'm going to begin with a slight detour about how I came to have this book. Every year, or most years, I try to attend a conference in Oxford where I did my ministry training called the MOSA Conference, the Ministerial Old Students Association, because I am, by their definition, an old student. I think it was after my son was born, I was talking with a colleague, the Reverend Andrew Hill, and his father had been a minister, and his father had attended MOSA back in the day. And Andrew had said to me that when he was really young, he hadn't realized what this conference was about. He just thought that his dad went off to Oxford for a few nights and came back with a book for him. So, loving a bit of that tradition, I sought to emulate him. And so this was purchased the first year that I went to MOSA after my son Thomas was born. So it's really his book, and I've borrowed it for today. It's called, as I said, Under the Same Sky. One of the things that I absolutely love about this book is you can see, as many children's books are, and adult books should, there's cutouts. But this is a very special form of cutout because the text then will appear on the subsequent pages. So this is Under the Same Sky. We live under the same sky, in lands near and far. We live under the same sky, wherever we are. We feel the same love in the cold ice and snow. We feel the same love where soft meadows grow. We play the same games where the hills touch the sky. We play the same games where the grass grows so high. We sing the same songs across the same seas. We sing the same songs caught on the breeze. We face the same storms where dark forests grow. We face the same storms where wild rivers flow. We dream the same dreams, whatever the weather. We dream the same dreams, and we dream them together. Britta Teckentrups under the same sky. So you now have a chance to share here, I suppose under the same lights and under the same community, your joys and your sorrows, your trials, as well as your triumphs. If you wish to come forward and light a candle, please do so. If you have a few words to say, please come to the microphone, so those who are listening online, as well as those who use the loop system, may be able to hear you. You're invited, of course, to light a candle in silence if you so wish. If you are online, please type into the chat box and we will read your message out. And as always, if you wish to remain seated, holding your life in your heart, know that your presence here is enough. Nothing else is asked of you. You are held and you are loved all the same. So I would like to light a candle for Ian, my father-in-law, who is unfortunately unwell, which is why he and Laura are unable to be with us today. So this is for Ian.
Bearing in mind the theme of today's after the service mini-conference, I'm sending the light of my candle across the world to inspire everybody to work against climate change.
For all those joys and sorrows here spoken, and those that remain silently in our hearts. Please join with me in singing our next hymn, number 168 in the Purple Book, Doreen Newport's Think of a World Without Any Animals, hymn number 168. Our second reading comes from the Reverend Sheena Gabriel. Sheena wrote this essay, Owning the Shadow and Becoming Conscious, as part of Maria Curtis's book, Cherishing the Earth and Nourishing the Spirit, which will be discussed a little bit later on after the service. Sheena speaks a lot about dreams and sort of psychology and counseling and psychotherapy, and approaches the question about the environmental crisis from this point. So this is a small excerpt from her essay, Owning the Shadow, Becoming Conscious. Some days I can forget the burning forests and rising waters. In my privileged life, in the garden among spring blossoms and flowers, I kid myself that things are not that bad. Other days, reality hits me like a body blow as I see on the news the suffering caused to humans and animals by loss of habitat and home. Sometimes I rage at those who put greed before human flourishing, the shadowy leaders of government, industries, and oil companies. I'll change my behavior if you clean up your act. Or I bargained with God. If you let it be okay, I'll never doubt you again. Then there are gray days when I feel apathetic, helpless in response to climate deniers. When I read about new technology to repair coral reefs or microbes that eat plastic, I have moments of uplift. When I see the courageous actions of Greta Thunberg and other eco-campaigners, I feel glimmers of hope. As with the loss of a loved one, I don't cycle neatly through the stages of grief. As I lament the degradation of planet Earth, I stagger back and forth between denial and guilt, anger and apathy, hope and despair. From Owning the Shadow, Becoming Conscious by Sheena Gabriel. Let us return now to a time of prayer with these words of Neil Bowers. From the north, the mountains and hills, the rock, which bears testament to Earth's age, whose character is solid and impervious, we seek our integrity, a resoluteness that defends its convictions. We seek to become a shelter to those who become exposed to the human elements of indifference and inequality. From the south, the land of heat and warmth, from a fire of passion and action, of burning desire and purifying crucibles, we seek inspiration and the glow of passion. We ask that whatever is within us. From the east, where a wind blows, bringing health and swelling our lungs, we seek a crisp, clear mind that engages with all and need not feel restrained by barriers. From the west, whose ocean was both a barrier and a bridge, whose cleansing water washed deep into every pore, we seek a compassionate heart, able to hold life as the waters host the fish, able to give life as it courses through our bodies. We ask that our infirmities be cleansed and healed. From within and without, from all directions and the center that guides our being, we seek an ever-present, ever-ready spirit, one that is as grounded as the mountain, as passionate as the fire, as fluid as the wind, and as clear as the ocean. We seek these qualities, that they may carry us to the world and ensure that what we see in ourselves becomes voiced in our world. Amen. And so we now enter into a period of silence for reflection, meditation, contemplation, and personal prayer. We come now to our next hymn in the Purple Book, number 84, Reverend Andrew Hill, as Justice for Persons, hymn number 84. When I was in 5th grade, around about the mid-90s, I recall a science textbook that mentioned the greenhouse effect, the fact that certain chemicals help to trap heat in the Earth's atmosphere, thus leading for this sort of vicious cycle of warming. Of course, was described at that time as global warming, though we use a more neutral term, not neutral term, but a more accurate term of climate change. But at the time, it was spoken of as global warming, and the greenhouse effect was one of the huge aspects and elements that was taught in school, even in primary school at that time. And when I remember this, almost swear that the blurb that talked about this included a drawing, and it was a crude drawing of a kid, and it wasn't like someone didn't draw this into the book. I want to make clear it was actually part of the textbook. So it was a drawing of a kid who was reclining on a chair with a drink in his hand and a big grin on his face. The implication being, and this was all within the greenhouse to illustrate the greenhouse effect, the implication being, I think, that at the very least we'll have warm, sunny weather. So maybe it's a good thing that this is all happening. And the position between the words of warning and that promise of joy seemed very contradictory, to say the least, even at my age. I felt a certain confusion by these mixed messages. This segment, presumably part of some Earth science module, included as well a discussion on renewable and non-renewable energy. Again, after reflecting on the statistics about how much energy was produced, I felt very confused. By definition, non-renewable energy is being depleted. And so why are people not making more of an effort to draw upon the renewable energy? I was certainly too young to understand the politics involved, the economics and technologies, and other excuses that adults make to justify their inertia. But like many in my generation, I studied for the exam and then continued on with my education. The facts and figures, having been memorized and regurgitated, were set aside for new pursuits. A few years ago, as I was reflecting on today's climate crisis, this past moment in my life came back into view. It must have been about 25 years from when I read those pages to when I remembered them. A quarter century, a full quarter century. And what did we have to show for it? What had we gained? What had we learned? What had we built? Was the crisis averted? Were we living more sustainably? I do not, as you will all, I'm sure, suspect, have to actually provide answers to these rhetorical questions. The science has been playing out ever since it was first recognized. And what was hypothetical is quickly becoming actual. I recall maybe a decade or two ago, it was around the time that the CIA considered climate change to be more of a risk to the U.S. than terrorism. Around the time when people suddenly were talking about El Nino, and we would see all of these sort of other storms and weather events that seemed outside of the climate as we understood it. Back then, again a decade or two ago, there was a hesitancy from the scientific community to name these events as being related to climate change. Outliers, perhaps, or storms of the century, but not necessarily or significantly caused by human-driven industry. That was, like I said, a generation ago. Now the conversation has changed, and we do appear to be at best on the precipice of significant climate change, if not already within its throes. What then can we say from our pulpits? Not just here on a Sunday, but within our hearts whenever the need for comfort is felt. When the problems appear so large, any changes we make individually often feel swallowed up by the totality of the whole system of consumerism. To say it is demoralizing is an understatement. To see the result of our sacrifices and feel as though they count for naught can lead to people feeling foolish and ultimately hopeless. We hear this in the excerpt of Sheena's essay. She draws upon Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's model of grief, that we engage with denial, anger, bargaining, despair, and hopefully some form of acceptance. These aren't stages, and people don't necessarily move smoothly from one to another. They can be experienced simultaneously, or one can interrupt another, or we can fear that we are regressing to an earlier point, like thinking that we are near acceptance and suddenly finding ourselves denying the facts once again. Reverend Gabriel writes about climate grief, and if we are to make any sort of inroads or progress, we must honestly accept where we are. For the past half-century, skeptics have asked what would happen if we were wrong. If we made these transitions to sustainable fuel, if we created a more environmentally friendly economy and found climate changing nevertheless, well, how foolish would we look? So let's pack up our turbines and turn on the gas. No, an economy that roots us to the earth, that seeks not to exhaust supplies, but rather lives within its means, will, I think, be more responsive to changing weather than one which steadfastly uproots the mountains, which drains the wells, which pours sludge into the oceans, and poisons the sky. Long before climate change was understood, there were people who extolled the need to remain connected to the planet. If we learn to love the earth, we will find labyrinths, gardens, fountains, and precious jewels. A whole new world will open itself to us.
we will discover what it means to truly be alive. Teresa of Avila in the mid-1500s. Let one fear above all me, their God, and so much the gentler will they become toward my creatures and animals, on whom account of their Creator they ought to have compassion. Birgitta, Bridget of Sweden in the 1300s. The quality of urban air compared to the air of the deserts and the forests is like thick and turbulent water to pure and light water. In the cities, with their tall buildings and narrow roads, the pollution that comes from the residents, their waste makes their entire air reeking and thick, although no one is aware of it. Does anyone know when that was written? That was written by Maimonides in the 12th century, nearly 1,000 years ago, noting the disparity in the air amongst those tall buildings. Just so you can see that our care for the world is necessary, even if climate change was a hoax, and I assure you it's not. We must again, in the words of Sheena, become conscious, own the devastation to which we have contributed, and only then can we honestly commit to creating a healthier world. Going back in time even further, we hear in the 4th century Jewish text, the Genesis Rabbah, that without earth there is no rain, and without rain the earth cannot endure, and without either humans cannot exist. A little over 1,600 years later, the words were echoed by George Carlin. The earth's not going anywhere. We are. Tomorrow, our Jewish neighbors are marking Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. This is traditionally seen as a time when the verdict on one's life is sealed. So the past 9 days is a time of reconciliation and reparation, acknowledging fault and making amends. Drawing from this, we place in the light our complicity in the economics and politics that have furthered climate change. We hold those times when we could have done more, when for whatever reason we did not act in the interests of the whole world. We seek, as best as we are able, to walk lightly upon the earth, to be good ancestors. As Andrew Hill remarks, justice, compassion, wisdom, and integrity will flower tomorrow if we plant the seeds today. I don't know if this address has engendered hope, which was my original intention. The future is uncertain, and if our actions can do something, then they must be done now. It may be that humanity's course is corrected in part by our efforts and in part by the tides of the planet. But to walk in concert with the other animals, to share more equitably the bounty of the world, is in itself a good thing and worthy of pursuit. Amen. A few notices before we sing our final hymn. If you're in need of pastoral care, please speak with me, or you can write to minister@crossstreetchapel.org.uk. Please do sign up for volunteering. We're always eager to have people help with the IT. How's the IT been today, Alvin? Fantastic. It's written sort of as easily, as accessibly as possible. If something goes wrong, then it's usually my fault. It's often, almost always my fault. And I say that so that you don't have to necessarily feel the pressure if it's not, if you're a bit sort of wary of technology, it is quite simple system. We also have, opportunities to volunteer, such as reading, greeting, providing flowers, and helping with the tea and coffee. And do we have anyone to help with the tea and coffee today? Well, thank you, Sonia. And we're also grateful for any financial contributions, in addition to things like volunteering that can assist the mission of our chapel. You can donate online at justgiving.com/cross-street-chapel-manchester. You can write to me if you want to see about setting up a standing order. And for people here in person, there is a retiring collection along with envelopes if you're a UK taxpayer, so we may claim gift aid. And if you're a regular in-person giver to the chapel, we have an envelope scheme. So you don't have to write your details down every time. And if this is your first time here, you're under no obligation to provide financially to the chapel. We're grateful for your presence here. And please do sign up to our mailing list if you're interested. Speak with me afterwards about that. A few upcoming events. As I said, we're going to have a climate conversation today at 12:30. This will be somewhat relaxed and informal, but there will be some contributions as well that we hope you'll be able to assist with as we make decisions about the chapel's movements going forward. On the 27th, Wednesday at 6:30, the Manchester Lit and Phil Society is holding a talk at the International Anthony Burgess Foundation. This is on their founding and particularly its relation to slavery and the slave economy. It is important for us as the Man, Lit, and Phil founding members. A lot of them were members of our chapel, so it's important for us as part of our sort of seeking to be good ancestors and to encounter sort of reparative justice to explore our past members. The event is £17, and it is this Wednesday at 6:30. Our Friday lunchtime recital is on Friday at 1 p.m., and it features the Latent Trumpet Quartet, so please do join us for that. All our recitals are free, but we're grateful for any contributions which go to the artists to recognize their time, talent, and energy. And then I'll just have two more, which is next week. The first is our harvest service. We collect food for the Salford Food Bank, as well as financial donations that day will go to the food bank as well, if you prefer to provide that rather than tinned and dried food. There's also a bring and share meal after the service, and we have a sign-up sheet for that if you're able to join us for that. And then finally, on the 7th, there is the National Unitarian Fellowship is holding a conference here. It is on religious education. I don't have the sheet to hand, but it's an all-day event from about 10 to 4. It's £10, but you get a free meal, I've been told. So a free lunch, but £10 for the conference. So do join us for that. That's on the 7th. And then I lied, there is one more, which is that Cross Street's choir is being restarted for our annual Anthems for Advent performance, which is the 24th of November. This is an open and friendly group of all abilities who enjoy sharing music. If you enjoy singing or think you would like to join, please write to our music director, Catherine, at music@crossstreetchapel.org.uk to express your interest. Are there any notices or announcements from the congregation? Let us then sing our final hymn in the Purple Book, number 32. Earth was given as a garden, hymn number 32.
Thank you.
music. Thank you, Alvin, for the IT, Sonia for the flowers, for helping to set up for the greeting, and for the tea and coffee that we're about to enjoy. And thank you to all of you for creating and sharing worship today. We close with these words of Robert Kaufman. We have come together to share our deepest concerns, speaking and singing words of inspiration and hope. We have committed ourselves to do what we can to ease the burdens of those who suffer, to stand for decency and compassion. We have pledged to work for a more wholesome environment for us and for all generations that will follow. But these are just words. The hymns we sing are just songs. All our reflections are just idle thoughts. When we convert them all into loving and responsible action throughout the week, then, and only then, will this morning become what we want it to be, a time of worship.